Good morning. Welcome to Women in Construction Month. So, my name is Corey Fisk, and I'm the founder of Construction Management Online. And I'm just going to really thank you first for being here today and recognizing the importance of taking care of ourselves when we're trying to establish our professional career. Now, last week we did have some internet problems. I hope that doesn't happen today, but we have a pretty good storm brewing out there. So I'm going to apologize ahead if this ends up getting cut off short, but I hope that it doesn't because today is a really important conversation. I know it's Women in Construction Month, but women don't only experience guilt. Men also will experience guilt when trying to establish their career. But maybe some of what I'm going to say today and in talking to women is going to resonate with some. And for our men in the group, what we really want to know is that we have your support, that there are some difficult things that women go through that are different than how men get through this professional career development. And so knowing that we have your support in this journey is going to be extremely helpful. So we're glad that you're here. So today I just want to really go over a few things, and that is understanding why you might feel guilt working in the construction industry, in this male majority industry, where we are expending a lot of time traveling and really seeking out our career. And I know that myself as a little girl, I had always had dreams of being a big corporate, exec. And it was really my mom graduated from high school as a school teacher, but my dad never went to college. And so it was kind of their dream for me to go that route. And I fell into it. I thought, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. This is what I love. But I didn't understand all of the things that I might have to give up if I were going to go that route. Now, I barrel race, a lot of you already know. And so that takes a lot of time and effort and money to go into raising animals that you're training and you're constantly keeping in shape, and you yourself are also staying in shape. And so there's a huge time commitment to that as well. So in different journeys or different seasons of our life, we will see that there are different decisions and choices that have to be made during those times. And I really was never one for wanting to sacrifice anything. I felt like I could fit it all in. And you can in a lot of situations, but sometimes when we do that, something has to give. And so the quality of what it is that we're committed to might not be the same level of quality that we expect that we should be able to have in that particular area of our life. And so I know that myself as a woman and a mom and growing up, that there's been a lot of things that have really required me to make sure that I was putting my best foot forward, but not feeling guilty about the time that I had to spend in it in order to become good or in order to complete the task or be able to support my family. And I know that from each perspective, everyone in my family sees it differently. So my dad would say that I was a workaholic and spending way too much time working. And my mom would be able to understand a little bit better with me, with her as a school teacher, but she waited for her career until all of her kids were raised. My husband would look at it as if I was supposed to be at home, taking care of the home. And my children, they grew up with it. And so until they got older, it was just part of the process. But when they did get older, that's when they started recognizing that they missed being able to spend time with me for certain events or certain things that they felt were special, but didn't know how to express that they really wanted me there for that particular event. Now, of course, I didn't miss any big events, but if I had had to, then that would have been a difficult choice that I would have had to make in order to make that decision moving forward. And so we have to understand that in order to help ourselves not feel guilty about the things that we have to do in life, we have to recognize first the project life cycle of our journey in living this well balanced life and career. And that is that, there are certain times in our life when just everything is going to be compounded, and there's really nothing that we're going to be able to do about that. We're going to have a family, we're going to be paying bills, developing a home, and we need a career in order to make all of that happen. And we need to spend quality time in our career getting good enough to be able to continue bringing in the financial income necessary to achieve all of the goals that we have. So in this, being a woman in construction, both men and women leave the house at the same time, that's 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, depending on how far you're driving. And then, you work sometimes till 2:30, sometimes till 3:30, 4 o'clock, sometimes till 6:30, depending on your work day. And so these are time frames that are not very conducive to being able to operate the household with children, especially young children that are going to school. You're getting them ready early in the morning, and then they're getting out sometimes at noon if they're in kindergarten, and then sometimes at 2:30 if they're in elementary school. And so I always felt that when this was happening, for some reason, I was always the one that was having to make the choices and the sacrifice when it came between my husband and I. And some people are able to develop great partnerships where they can really work this out with each other. And I really commend you on that, because we do have traditional roles that a lot of times society tends to raise us up in those roles, where we start taking on the assumption that we are supposed to be responsible for the womanly things, and then the man is responsible for those traditional protect and provide things. And so it really became evident to me when I went through my divorce, because during this time, there's five life events that completely change who you are. And that is the death of someone that you love, having to move, getting a career, your career or your job, having a family, and getting married. And so when we are looking at these things that happen in our life that could really change the trajectory of everything, when I got a divorce, this is when I finally started to see the requirement of shared responsibilities, so that it wasn't me feeling guilty for not being able to provide for my children or being able to be there for my children, but that it was a shared responsibility that needed to be divided with more equity between my partner and I. And so when I started revealing this and really taking a look at this, what I really wanted to pay attention to was the response to my children and my response to them in school, because I did have one child that would get angry and would get angry a lot. And I was spending a lot of time working, because during the divorce, I was working 2 different jobs, and it was really tough. I had this moment in time where I thought I was going to be able to save my home and be able to continue paying for it. And it just was too big of a sacrifice for me to think that I was going to be able to keep this, big, beautiful home and property for my horses going through the divorce. And so I did feel guilty. I felt terrible. I was moving my kids from their home, and, we already had the school that was right there close. And so being able to really understand the need to divide your choices and be able to really put your choices in a light that allowed you to be able to see how they were going to be impacted over time, so that you're not just making a decision in the immediate response, because a lot of times our emotion can come into play. And when that happens, then we make irrational choices. So I'm just going to take a break here for a second and move over to my comments and see if we have anybody that is wanting to share any of their stories here today in in our live stream? Okay, fantastic. No, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you so much for being here today. And so, when we're thinking about guilt in our life in the construction industry, a lot of this has to do with the amount of time that's necessary on a construction project. So, I was thinking about coming on and doing this talk today, and I'm like, okay, well, if you leave your work at 5, or if you leave your home at 5 o'clock, you're probably really not going to get into work mode until 6:30 when you get there to work. But the phone started ringing this morning, and it was ringing at like 6 o'clock. I'm like, who is calling at 6 o'clock in the morning? But then I was like, oh yeah, it's storming outside. So pretty much there's going to be someone that has some stormwater issue that's going on, or there's always going to be a fire that needs to put out. And so in that moment, you're like, well, do I stop? Do I stop everything? Do I finish getting the kids ready for school? Do I answer this call? And we have a tendency to lean towards whatever the work is demanding of us. And so understanding that those choices are important because they are laying a foundation and a groundwork of what is going to impact your family, your friends, when you move down further into the seasons of your journey, where you are going to be able to have more time to yourself, more time to your work, and being able to cipher through some of these challenges a lot easier than you are during this really impactful time in your life when everything seems to be hitting at one time. And so when we get onto the workspace and we start working our workday, and we're thinking about, did my child have a fever when I left home? Did the babysitter get all the snacks that needed to be given for the child? Oh, there's that bill that needs to be paid once I get home. Is the house getting cleaned? Who's cleaning it? What are we having for dinner? Now, I will just tell you, I hated more than anything to have to figure out what was going to be for dinner. Like, I could make dinner, no problem. I could cook all day long. I did not like to have to make the choice of what was going to be for dinner every single night. And so there's just things that happen as a woman in the construction industry, and really any career that we're looking at, that the impact of all of those other things that we're responsible for is inevitably going to carry over into our workspace. And so men are very good at being able to black and white box things into separate containers. And, that they're very good at that, but then they're not always very good at releasing the stress and the anxiety that can happen when you box like that. And so these are differences in men and women that we need to be aware of, so that we can each individually work on those areas. So women need to be able to focus, just like men are able to focus, and men need to be able to release some of those tensions by being more open and vulnerable about things that are going on in their life. And then women need to maybe pull back on some of that vulnerability and just recognize that we are tougher than we think we are. We can get a lot more done than sometimes we think we can. And that we need to be more voiceful about sharing some of that responsibility of the home life and things that are going on. And so men are capable of doing it. I know, because I have an absolutely wonderful husband who does his more than his part in helping out around the house and doing things when he knows that I'm going to be really focused on certain activities that I want to be able to stay focused on. So I guess with all this to say, I just wanted to be able to come in here and let you know that you're not alone in this journey that you're making. We are always trying to do better. And so it's always the practice of implementation and recognizing and understanding that when we feel guilt, that we need to take a moment in order to be able to assess what we believe the root cause of that guilt is, and then determine of whether or not we're making the right choices in order to be able to release that guilt and understand why we're doing what we're doing. And this is really important because not everyone's going to agree with our decisions. Not everyone is going to be on board with the choices that we make. But what we have to understand is that it really is not for anyone else to judge. They're not in my shoes. They don't understand what's going on. You know, the more we have stacked on us, it is not only that particular item, but it's an accumulation of these items that start wearing on the mental health and wellness of where we're at with things, that can start causing depression and start causing us to feel unworthy or like we do not belong. And so recognizing these emotions and these feelings that are coming up means that there's something going on in your life that needs to have an assessment. And so taking the moment and the time to be able to do that, to see that awareness, to be able to recognize, and in some cases, it won't be an overnight fix. It'll be something where you recognize that maybe a choice that you had made was not the right choice, but now's the time to redirect your choices. And that because that one choice needs a redirection, there might be a small time of sacrifice or, you know, small hard things in order for the big reward. And so, with that being said, I just want all of you lovely ladies out there not to feel guilty about being in a career, being in an amazing career in the construction industry. Recognize the company that you're working with. There's a lot of companies out there who understand the difficulties that women have, especially single moms that are having to leave their work at a certain time in order to be able to make sure that the kids are set up with a babysitter or after school care after they're picked up from school. And just understanding that, you know, while we're there working, we still have other things on our mind that are taking care of the household. And just as men also do, but our responsibilities are usually aligned differently. So we're going to respond differently and we're going to approach things differently. And it's in this difference that these different stresses arise. And so we want to make sure that we're not feeling guilty about having to make choices. Where you are right now today is exactly where you're supposed to be. So it is never a bad choice, but there are always different choices that you can make. And so when we start feeling guilty, we need to identify what that root cause of that guilt is. We need to acknowledge it. We need to recognize that we are free to feel that guilt because it is a true feeling. It's authentic to where we're at in the moment. But if it means that we need to readdress the hours that we're spending with our children or the activities that we're doing, then we can do that. And, you know, we're going to have to do it more than once. We're going to have to do it over and over and over. And this is the beautiful thing about life, is that there never is perfection. And that's why it's not practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so making sure that whenever we are practicing, that we're understanding that this is a portion and a part of our life that needs to be as enjoyable in the moment as it can be. We want to be loving our work. We want to be loving being with our family. And we want to do everything we can to remove guilt from our professional career growth. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for being here today and just recognize that you are a very hardworking person. You've already achieved tremendous success just being able to be in the construction industry. It can be a hard industry, but there are short periods and the rest of it has a lot of rewards that are very satisfying to career women. And recognizing that we do need men in our life and we need to be able to lean on these men, but we also need to be able to train and educate men on the reasons why this is happening to us as women, because we can't assume that they know, we can't assume that they understand. And so we need to be very clear after our awareness and our assessment of what's causing guilt and what we need to do in order to be able to redirect that choice and that change. We need to be able to be open with our male counterparts, with other women counterparts that we're working with, and with the companies that we're working with. And companies are going to start realizing the importance that women add to the construction industry, and our diversity and empathy and compassion and communication and multitasking that we bring to the organization and management of a project. And so it's going to be very important to allow our flexibility and adaptability in how we deal with our home, our families, our work, the same way that we're able to manage a construction project. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. And once again, just want to wish everyone a happy Women in Construction Week. So I want to remind you that I will be here again next Friday. Next Friday, we're going to be talking about opportunities for women in construction so that we can identify all of the different ways that construction is supporting the career growth of women. And then also recognizing that if you have not subscribed to my newsletter, please do so, because the Thursday prior to these talks, I'm releasing an article that just kind of preps us for what we're going to be talking about that Friday morning. So thank you again very much for being here today. Have an absolutely wonderful weekend.